start, guys? Is that okay? Stand up. So, welcome everybody. My name is Azra Raza, and I'm your host this evening, this afternoon. Delighted to be so. But the real hosts are, of course, May and Robin, and you introduce everyone else, Michael, Tim, amazing group of people. But the most important is all of you who have taken out the time on this gorgeous Saturday afternoon to come for such a good cause. It is the month of Ramzan, so a lot of you are fasting. And I know that the Honorable Congressman Ellison is fasting as well. So Ramzan Mubarak to all of you.
Ramadan Kareem.
Ramzan Kareem Mubarak. And an early Eid Mubarak. It is a very special occasion to have the Congressman here. Congressman, when I was 23 years old, I came to the United States, having just graduated from medical school. And I met the one man who would influence me the most within a month of landing here. And I ended up marrying him also. Nice Jewish guy from Brooklyn. And one of the first things that Harvey taught me was that, look, a lot of people will tell you a lot of things about America. But you are here as a 23-year-old, first time in the US, and you plan to do all your training here and maybe settle here. So the two things I want you to do to learn about America is, number one, watch every Hollywood classic movie. Starting with, the Gloria, the really going back, further back than Casablanca to High Noon type movies. So I have all of Joan Crawford films, you'll see. I have Tallulah Bankhead. I mean, I really went back. But the second thing he said to me, which made a huge impression, was that one of the greatest tragedy of America, even though it claims to be a country where everyone can have an equal opportunity, whether they make use of that or not, the important thing is everyone is supposed to have an equal opportunity, but that has not historically been the case, nor is it today. And so in order for you to learn that, he said, I'm going to give you one book, and if you get interested in, then we'll talk about more. Otherwise, I don't think you're interested in learning about America. So the book he gave me in 1977 was The Autobiography of Malcolm X.
That's a good one.
I read that book, it changed my life completely. I have 3 shelves of books now on writers, starting from Richard Wright, James Baldwin. I became a James Baldwin groupie. Wherever he was speaking in Western New York, I was there. He thought I was stalking him. He was a great speaker also. But little did I think back in 1977 that a day will come when Harvey is dead, I'm in New York, the city where he was born and raised, and I would be hosting our first Muslim black Congressman, Ellison, in my own home. What an honor. Congressman, one of the most famous women besides me in Manhattan, Mrs. Astor. She died when she was 106, but on her 100th birthday, one of my friends happened to be there, who was the head of the New York Public Library. So he told me this story personally. He said on her 100th birthday, I was very close to her because I was always fundraising with her for the New York Public Library. So I asked her, Mrs. Astor, you've lived 100 years. If there's one message you'd like to give us, what would it be? And she, without thinking, said immediately, meet new people. If you keep meeting the same old, you'll be the same old, same old. So my message in the 100 years of life I've lived is, it's so exciting to meet new people. Go out, meet new people all the time. And that is so beautiful because many of you are here. I'm meeting you for the first time, and it is such an honor. Thanks to Congressman Ellison, who has brought so many of you into my life today, and I'm very grateful for that. So thank you everybody for coming again. And now, I do have a message for my audience also. One of my favorite writers is Annie Dillard. She lives in New York, and she got the Pulitzer Prize back in 1976 for her book Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. One of the most beautiful writers ever to have written about nature. So I'm in touch with her always, and recently, after a 30-year hiatus, I think, her book came out, The Abundance. It's a collection of essays. So she was being interviewed on NPR, and they asked her, Ms. Dillard, why did you name your book The Abundance? And she said, well, you know, for the last 30 years, whenever I read like a quotation or a line that strikes me, I note it down in my journal. And many years ago, I wrote down this saying from Muhammad. And she found it in the Quran. And so she wrote it down, and it says, they will ask thee, what should you expend with? The word is expend, not spend. Expend what you can do without. What should you expend with? Say to them the abundance. Give it all away. You will be filled from behind. This is my message to you. We are facing a very, very disturbing time right now. Not just in the United States, in the whole world, there is a crisis. The fundamental values are being questioned. Those of us who came to this country and felt very safe, having worked very, very hard, and believing in the meritocracy of this country to protect us, suddenly can have the rug pulled from under us. And it is very, very frightening. So now is the time for us to band together. It is not the time to have little selfish interests. We should give, and I'm not talking about money, give of your time. That is even more precious than money. My message is, Congressman Ellison is here. Look at the service that they are performing for us today. It is up to us to rise to the challenge, stand behind the congressman and leaders like him. Ask for guidance and really go ahead and give of ourselves with abundance. Welcome everybody. I would like now to introduce Michael, who will introduce Congressman Ellison.
Thank you for that impassioned introduction, and thank you for your hospitality and graciousness. This event is a couple of years actually in coming. Robin and I used to work together. I've known Robin since graduate school in 1992, 93, a long time ago. And we've been talking about acting on our ideas. We've had many discussions over the years about the state of affairs in this world, the impact of automation on labor, and the impact of globalization on labor when there's no support for dislocated workers. The growing inequality in income and assets and wealth. I mean, think of years ago, Lester Thoreau was talking about steps and ladders, and Paul Krugman, and more recently, Tomasz Piketty, with some very compelling and controversial economic analysis. And we talked and had great ideas, but didn't act. And then, of course, with the culmination in last November in the presidential election. But let's not limit it to that. Right now, 33 governors and 32 legislatures are controlled by one party. And we've watched since 1980 the left in this country and the entire political spectrum get pulled further and further and further to the right. I would posit today Ronald Reagan would be a moderate Democrat and Nixon might be a liberal Democrat. And so we've also, and to me, there's been a loss of faith in the institutions, in the political institutions. There's been a subordination of policy to politics, and this seemingly incessant, compelling need to feed the news media sound bites rather than feed the 1 in 5 children who face food uncertainty. And this is what really has driven us to act. And why we support Congressman Ellison is that he is the type of congressman that we believe in and we stand behind. I know that Dr. Azra has suggested he's the first Muslim ever elected in this country to any federal office, not just Congress. And there are only 2 now in Congress. But he is also the first national vice chair of the DNC, should be the chair in my opinion. We can talk about that. And is also the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, the true arm of the Democratic Party. And what is particularly compelling, what a lot of people don't know, is the way he legislates. He has 2 tranches of bills. One are the bills that are incremental, the bills that can get bipartisan support, that work on the margins, and we can get through. They're the politically viable bills. But then he also has a tranche of bills that are bills about the way America should be, what we should aim for, how this country should be for our children. And as a father of an 11-year-old daughter, those bills matter a lot to me, and they should matter to all of us. Congressman Ellison is also the 2nd most prolific legislator in the Democratic Party, and the 3rd overall in Congress. He is someone who, although very progressive and an unabashed liberal, isn't afraid to break with the party if he believes in the value proposition and believes in the facts and evidence. And that's really how we came to meet, because in our little niche issue of the world, we work on financial inclusion. And one of the bills that the congressman has been shepherding through Congress for the past 8 years is a tool that probably most of you never heard of, would never think of, but basically a lot of the bills you pay, gas, water, electric, wireline, wireless, cable, etc., when they get reported to a credit bureau, they get reported only negative. You're delinquent, you're charged off, and that's a black mark on your credit report. And that follows you around for 7 years. When you pay your bills on time, that's not reported. And for many people, there's a condition in this country called credit invisibility. And happily, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is threatened at this moment, wrote 2 reports in the last 2 years on credit invisibility. That's a term that Robin and I coined. And it's 35 to 54 million people in this country, the most information-rich country in the world, either don't have a credit report or who have insufficient information in their credit report to get a score. And why does that matter? Well, this goes back to talking about labor. The 2 primary means by which Americans build assets and generate wealth are home ownership and starting a small business. And for most people, that requires convincing someone, usually a bank, to give them credit. So unless you have a credit score, you're automatically rejected. And that means you're caught in the credit catch-22, you're caught in a poverty trap, and these are immigrants, younger Americans who are eschewing traditional credit, elderly Americans, think of increasing widow-widower or increasing divorce, late-stage widow-widower effect, and lower-income persons, overwhelmingly members of protected or minority classes. So it's a very, very significant issue, and we met with the congressman about this, and right on our tails were some very influential consumer advocacy groups who would deter 99.9% of Democrats from taking this issue up, but not Congressman Ellison. For 4 Congresses, he has introduced the same bill with growing bipartisan support, the Credit Access and Inclusion Act. And that's why we're here today. And oh, by the way, this isn't just a limited incident. Angus Deaton, who famously has written more recently about the diminishment or the declining life expectancy of white working class men in America. Again, think back to globalization, dislocation, the assault of automation on opportunity. There was an article in The Atlantic recently about this particular topic, and he was asked, well, gee, what's the response been from policymakers? Congress must be all over this. He said, nope, just one congressman called me. Right there. So we are very privileged to have that one congressman here, and I hope that this one congressman becomes a growing voice of leadership in the Democratic Party, the face of the Democratic Party, and the leadership that we need today and into the future. So without further ado, I give you Congressman Keith Ellison.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Come and sit, please. We have plenty of space. Sorry, Congressman.
No problem.
Can I have my glass of water from behind you? Please.
We have room here, we have spots here, please come.
Good. Is everybody comfortable? Well, assalamu alaikum. That just means peace be unto you.
It's okay.
It's Ramadan now, so it's true that I'm fasting, but I'm feeling really energized and energetic today. You know, in the beginning it's hard, and then as it goes on, I just feel a little lighter and a little more, I don't know, maybe it's food deprivation getting in my brain or something, but I'm just having a wonderful day today.
You're in the zone today.
I'm in the zone. So anyway, let me just say, opening up your home, where you refuge, right? Get away from the world is an incredibly gracious thing to do. It's an act of generosity, and for that, I have to thank you. Let's put our hands together for Dr. Raza one more time. And your remarks, I found them so touching. I mean, and it's clear that you're like an intellectual, right? And you're into your books and your ideas, and I share that with you. I don't think I have a library this extensive, but you know, I really respect where you're at with the idea of curiosity and inquiry. It's awesome. And also,
in this background of books, even you are looking literate.
that's right. That's right. And also, Dr. Raza, your nephew's here who's co-hosting with you, right? Where is he? Oh, well, that's all right. Thumbs up to him for helping you out. And then Michael and Harshini Turner. Michael, where you at? Oh, there you are. Hey, man, we've been on this journey, and we're going to march till we finish it, right? And I don't care how long it takes, we're going to do this. Let me just tell you guys, if I told you that you could help low-income people put more money in their pocket, that you could ease the burden for people who want to get a cell phone and not have to put down a big deposit, that you could make credit scores literally more accurate and predictable because they would include more data, and you wouldn't spend 1 penny of the government's money, would you do it? Would you take that deal?
Yes.
Well, that's what we're talking about. And we're working on it. We're not going to stop, are we?
No, we're
It's
not.
a good idea. And, you know, I like the idea of challenging traditional ideas of alleviating poverty. You know, it can't just be about charity, although I believe in charity. It's also got to be about empowerment. And that's what this Credit Act and Inclusion Act is all about. So tell somebody. It's a good idea. Let me also say, Robin Varghese and Maeve Adams, what a pleasure getting to know both of you. Thank you for helping bring us together today. And I'm just really delighted to be able to get to know you. Yeah. And AJ Singh Chaudhry, where's AJ?
The people's son.
He's at the people. Oh, he's over. Yeah, well, good. That's a good place to be today. I want to say thank you to him for his putting his name together and pulling us together. And so with that, let me just share a few ideas with you. For those of you who I haven't had a chance to meet yet, let me just say, you know, my name's Keith Ellison. I was originally from Detroit, Michigan. When I was 22, I went to Minnesota and got married in Detroit. I had my first child within about 6 months of moving to Minnesota, started law school, had our second child by the time I was a third-year law student, got out of law school at 25, and I've always been an activist, always been engaged in pushing social justice. When I got out of law school, I went to a big silk stocking law firm. They were very nice to me. I still hold them in great affection, but it wasn't what I was there to do. And I always felt like, you know, I need to be fighting for justice, right? So I went to go be the director of something called the Legal Rights Center. And I did that for about 5 years, basically a public defender's office. And we represented a whole lot of people who needed representation. But we also did a lot of mediation, community mediation, a lot of public education, had a very strong street law program. But, you know, by that time I had 4 kids and just couldn't make it go on a nonprofit salary anymore. So started my own law firm with about 4 friends of mine. Did that for a few years. And we represented people in the courts of Minnesota and really all over the country. But it just hit me after a while. I said, you know, you can only really help one person at a time as a lawyer, right? I guess you could do class action, but, you know, what if we could, like, change the law? So I ran for state legislature, and I lost. And so, you know, but I'm not a crybaby. I wasn't in it for me. I was in it for the issue. So I supported the guy who beat me. And then a few years later, he ran for another office. I ran for his seat and I went to the state legislature. And there, got really into a few issues. One, environmental justice. You know, if I told you that we're spending a lot of time talking about curriculum and test scores and all that, and that's all fine, but that kid, because that kid lives in a house with lead everywhere, has a limited opportunity to expand his or her mind, you know, that would change the conversation a little bit, wouldn't it? You know, and so I started a group called Environmental Justice Advocates in Minnesota. It's still pumping. I had to quit when I went to Congress, you know, but they're still doing it and getting it done. But we worked on housing. I think housing's at a critical stage in this country. Not enough housing. There was a study released just the other day that said, if you want, I'm sure in New York it's much, much tougher than this, but the average wage to get a one-bedroom apartment in a major city, not New York and DC and San Francisco, is about $17. If you're making less than that, there's no way you're going to be able to make ends meet on that one bedroom, right? And so, look, over the last 40 years, our economy has tilted dramatically against working people. Over the last 40, 50 years, our country has changed a lot. In 1957, we had discrimination, we had racial segregation, we had, you know, women couldn't even get a credit card in their own name, and gays were limited in their access to so many things that we still thought that it was really exotic and out there to be Catholic, you know. What I mean is that, you know, we thought that was like, oh my God. But one person could feed a family of 4. 35% of the workforce was in a union, and another 35% was paid as if it was. And the union set the wage rate. Union density was higher, much higher. And guess what? Something called the American dream wasn't just a dream, it was reality for so many people. Since that time, assaults on union, assaults on the public commons, all of our collective wealth that we own together, the streets, the roads, the schools, the water, has been under constant assault. So that's why, after being in the state legislature for a few years, I ran for Congress. We were in the middle of the Iraq War. We couldn't stay because it was going disastrously. Y'all remember? Yeah. But we couldn't leave because we had invested so much in blood and treasure. I said from the very beginning, this is a bad thing. How do I know? Because 2/3 of Iraq was under a no-fly zone. They could barely feed their population. They didn't attack us. This is dumb. We can't do this. And I joined the millions of people who were in rallies all over this country and world saying, do not do this, George Bush, do not invade Iraq. Well, he did anyway. And now we are still dealing with that to this very moment. I ran for Congress not thinking I was going to win. And good friends of mine told me, you are not going to win. First of all, you're black. You ain't going to win. Minnesota's one of the whitest states in the union. You ain't going to win. I said, well, we'll let the people decide, right? And then, by the way, you're also Muslim. Here's the funny thing about my race. Nobody brought up my color. All they wanted to talk about is my religion. And I thought to myself, have we made progress on that? Who knows, you know? Anyway, so despite my opponent's best efforts to make sure every single solitary person in the district knew that I was Muslim, very Muslim, too Muslim, I won anyway. And that was 10 years ago. Nobody more surprised than me. And so, like, truth be told, I love public service, but I don't care about being in Congress. I was ready to leave it if I won the chair's race. Not because I don't love it. I think what's greater than serving your neighbors? Nothing, right? Not in my book. But, you know, the people in the 5th Congressional District of Minnesota, you know, they know that if they can elect me with 80% of the vote, what good is that going to do them if we're not helping other people win? So they were actually cool with it, although, you know, I didn't want to go and they didn't want to get rid of me quite yet. So anyway, that didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to, but let me tell you, it's okay. And here's why it's okay. Because me and Tom share core values. Because I'm still in Congress, which is all right with me. And because I still get to help steer the Democratic Party. Let me tell you a little bit about the Democratic Party. For the last 8 years, we didn't lose one election. We lost well over 1,000. In November, everybody say, oh my God, we lost. Well, we've been losing. And this is the problem with people who think, well, it's just about Comey's letter, and it's just about the Russians, and it's just, you know what? That's looking at it in too narrow of a view. You got to look at this thing a little bit more comprehensively. We have disinvested in state and local races. We have focused our attention only in the battleground states, and we really only campaign every 4 years, which is why we take a bath during the midterms. This has all got to change, and me and Tom absolutely agree that the Democratic Party has got to get out of just the battleground states, get out of just television, get out of just campaigning every 4 years. And we got to go from television to grassroots organizing on the doors, knocking everywhere, calling everywhere. We got to go from every 4 years to every single day. We got to go from battleground to the whole country and every single county in it. And that is where we're taking it. Are we there yet? No, but we're on our way. We got this thing called Resistance Summer. Has anybody heard of it? 1, good. 2, 3, awesome. I get to tell you about it. So here's what Resistance Summer is. Resistance Summer is an intensive engagement to door knock, canvas, do phone banks, tables at the community events, clipboards at community events, and it's a 90-day intensive program. And we have Resistance Summer, but just between you and I, don't tell anybody this is just a secret. We're gonna have Democracy Fall. You know what I mean? We're gonna keep this thing going, so when we end up in the election year of 2018, we don't have to get ready, we're gonna be ready. You know what I mean? And that means we are training people, we're engaging people, we are getting back in touch with our neighbors. What is the business that we're gonna do? So the DNC raises money, pushes it out to the state parties, they hire more extra organizers, and that's sort of the guts of the program. Then we have something called Democrats Live. Please, on Wednesday nights, get up on the Democratic Party page and check out Democrats Live. It's a weekly live stream hosted by me. And we've had Elizabeth Warren, we've had veterans on, we've had talked about the health care bill, and you know, if you got ideas for it, we want them. But please tune in and check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. Even if you're in Pakistan, you can watch it. All right, but Resistance Summer is recognition of the fact that if you have a TV-oriented campaign, that's the most passive way to campaign. It's not interactive. It's not two-way. You can't ask the TV a question, right? We've got to start building relationships with people. And I'm telling you, we had a day of action on June 3rd, and we had 150 sites, all 50 states, including Democrats abroad, about 9 million Americans who live abroad. There's a bunch of my Democrats, they're active. And you know, we're birthing leaders all over the place. We have days of action like today. We've got a big canvas going on in all these different districts. They're doing canvassing. And we are going to upgrade and increase the level of activity. We're telling these Democrats, get out of the campaign headquarters and get on the doors. Build a relationship. Go meet somebody. Go meet new people, right?
Yes.
Like Tallulah Bankhead would have you do. Let's get out there and really engage our neighbors, because here's the thing. There's somebody out there, and maybe he drives a pickup truck with a gun rack, wears a Carhartt jacket and a John Deere hat. But you know what about that guy, that white guy living out in rural New York? He has pre-existing condition. His father's fighting opioid addiction. The plant might just close, don't know whether it will. He's our neighbor. Can't ignore him. Gotta go talk to him. And yeah, he might go hunting all the time, so he's kind of affectionate about that gun. But you know what, that's not the most important issue, right? Healthcare. Oh, by the way, his cousin works in a solar panel manufacturing plant. You know there's more people work in solar than coal nowadays, right? I'm talking statistically, it's a fact, right? And there's also a little old lady lives at the end of the hall. She kind of minds her own business, but her son, you know, he got a good education, moved to San Diego, doesn't call that much. You go knock on her door and say, you know what, Miss McGillicuddy, we're gonna have a phone bank because we know you don't walk that good, so you can be on the phones. you can be part of our campaign. And she might come down there and tell you how she remembered when JFK was elected and what she was doing. She might even bring you a peach cobbler or something for the campaign meeting. I mean, you know, you will build community with her. And then there's that young brother down there, Latino or black, pants hanging down his butt. Don't, let's just admit, most people are scared of him. Be honest. But if you go to him and you talk to him, you say, hey man, what you doing for a living? How you making money? You know. What if you can become a canvasser for our campaign? We'll pay you. We'll pay you $15 an hour, man. And all you gotta do is talk to the people in the neighborhood, sign them up to vote. You know everybody in the neighborhood anyway, right? Okay, I'll do it. This kid could be your city council member in a few years. You believe in him a little bit. I'm telling you, Americans are all over this country thirsting for community. And that's why we're telling people the most important thing is not the election. Why is the most important thing not the election? Because if you go to somebody in October or even August of the election year and you say, would you vote for us? They're going to say, okay, you want me to vote for you. What are you going to do for me? You get into this transactional relationship. It's all about, you know, what you're going to do for me now, what I'm going to do for you now. What we really want to do is, the reason we are engaging in Resistant Summer now is so when it comes to the 2018 October, we already know each other. We already have a relationship. You already have felt my heart. You know I'm sincere, and you know I'm in this so that you can have a climate you can live in, a president who's not beholden to Russian interests, and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? Healthcare, maybe. Because you don't trust me because you don't know me, and you don't know me because I haven't never knocked on your door before. So we're trying to build relationship. And once you build relationship, you find out there's a lot of ways to express yourself politically. One is an election, but another one is a letter to the editor. Another is a community meeting. I went to the 3rd Congressional District of Minnesota last Monday because their Congressman, Eric Paulson, won't do it. It was set up by the Indivisible group, and they invited me and him, had a chair for him. He wasn't there, so they said, he had a sign that said Eric Paulson right there. And they had me up there, I showed up. And so we talked healthcare for a couple hours, heard some heartbreaking stories. Healthcare, one lady said, you know, I'm 34 years old, my mother died of breast cancer, my aunt died, her sister, my aunt died of breast cancer, my older sister got a diagnosis, I'm asymptomatic, but I am too young to die because I got little kids. I'm thinking about having a double mastectomy. Imagine that. Choices people are being forced into because if they get rid of the Affordable Care Act, I need to do something. This was all based on there not being an Affordable Care Act. So she's there, scared to death. There's another lady said, look, my insulin's been spiking through the roof. It used to be a reasonable price, now it's just spiked. I can barely afford it. I'm on Social Security disability, which means I have a cap, I have a ceiling on how much money I'm allowed to make. So what I'm saying is, you know, our country is a great country. I love this country. I'm so proud of it. There's very few other nations in the world that could have been trading in slaves 150 years ago and now have full equality for everybody, at least under the law. Still fighting for social equality. But under the law, this is an extraordinary achievement. We literally defeated Jim Crow segregation. And no foreign, the Canadians didn't come down here and make us stop. Americans just did it. Not like that, but the people who like the old way, after we passed the Voting Rights Act in 1965, they never stopped trying to reverse it. And they never stopped. And right now they're fighting with the mayor of New Orleans over there, heroes, who took up arms against the United States in treason. You know what I'm talking about, right? What I'm saying to you, though, is that the United States has always been a contest. It's always been a struggle. It's always been a struggle between people who believe liberty and justice for, help me out, this is audience participation. Liberty and justice for all. And the other people who believe liberty and justice for me and people like me. Not y'all. And they like to hear something about building a wall and banning certain people and who's not in and who's, and how women's supposed to get back into some 1950s mythical role. You understand what I'm trying to say? That's where their head's at. But we're not going to let them do it. We're not going back into that cage no more. It's simply not going to happen. And that's why the Women's March, can we get a hand for the Women's March? The day after America's leading misogynist is inaugurated, the women, 4.6 million strong, lead the men and the children and everybody else to a mass rally that may have been the biggest mass demonstration the United States ever saw. And since that time, we've had the Science March, we've had the March for Truth, we've had the Tax March, we've had the Climate March, and every single day the level of activity is on jam. So the Democratic Party, we are trying to not control the energy, but just connect with it, partner with it, and then help convert it into the ballot box. The bread box to the ballot box. The street to the ballot box. You know, demonstration without some legislation is a frustration. And so we've got to, we see that as our job of saying, okay, great march, great speech, here's how you vote. You know what I mean? You want to check. We got in this mess because we lost a bunch of elections. We're going to get out of it when we win some. We're looking good in Georgia. We got a bunch of seats right here in New York we could win. I'm talking about congressional seats that we could flip right here. You don't, I mean, God bless you for going to New Hampshire, going up to Massachusetts to help out Elizabeth, going down to New Jersey, we need your help there too. But in good old New York, the national leader, their seats, we got to flip right up in here. This IDC thing is bad. And I hope that we, and I was at a fundraiser yesterday for the New York Senate Dems and made, I don't know, about 20 minutes worth of comments on why it needed to end. Here's my thing with the people who are part of it. When they ran for office for the first time, it wasn't for money and it wasn't for titles. It was because they were outraged about the condition of their neighborhood and the people they wanted to serve. Remember that. You're selling out to the party of Donald Trump so you can get a title. That title ain't worth it. Come back into the fold and be part of this move to not just resist Trump, but to really reestablish core values of economic fairness and social inclusion and fairness. That's all I want to say today. If you got any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. So you could ask our esteemed host some questions. You could ask Mr. Turner, Dr. Turner some questions. I will answer them. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, I've worked on a number of Democratic campaigns over the years, and something I've noticed is when we do get out and talk to voters or potential voters, there seems to be a big variation in tracking information. And I was just wondering, now that you're inside of the NC, what do you think of that?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you the straight up, candid truth. The DNC has been somewhat neglected, and we have got to we need a tech surge, and we need a training surge, and we need a re-engagement with our neighbors. We need to improve our communication stability. It's not a disaster, but it needs substantial improvement. And you might ask yourself, why? Why is it like this? Well, because people in general have devoted more resources to the candidate committees, the DCCC, which I'm a part of, the DS, which Senator Schumer leads, even the DLCC, which is something for the state legislators. Usually people are like, I got to give money to the candidate who's running for election. That's fine, but the DNC really has a role of building an infrastructure base. So whoever comes out of the primary, you got a wide awake, well-trained, hungry army to go win that election. And if you neglect that long enough, you end up in the situation we're in right now. it's kind of like, who works out in here? So I know all of y'all do, of course. So it's like if you work on your arms and you work on your legs, but you never do any of them Pilates, you know what I mean? And you end up with a weak core, you know? You got to have a strong core in order to have a strong party. I believe that the Democratic Party really is a social justice agency organized around a set of values designed to put people in office who will enact those values. That's what it's about. It's not for the Democrats, it's for the American people. And yet, because we've kind of gotten the impression, you talk to a lot of Democrats, they think the Democratic Party is for Democrats, and it's for the American people. There is a patriotic mission. It is for the common good. We exist to advance the common good. We don't exist just to look out after ourselves. That's not what it is. I know we call them clubs, but they're not those kind. They're not country clubs, right? It's supposed to be come one, come all. You share the values. You're welcome. And we've been a little bit exclusive, and we've got to change that. So does that answer your question, somewhat?
Yeah.
Okay. We've got a lot of improving to do. So we're raising money, but I'm telling everybody, look, you know, Hillary Clinton had more money than Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So it's not only a matter of money, it's a matter of what you do with it. You got to get on the doors. You got to build a relationship. You got to make people think, oh boy, things are going bad. You know who we should call? The Democrats. And at this point, I think we got a little bit of improving to do, particularly among millennials. I mean, and right now, look, I'm all for all the groups that we've seen proliferate. They're great. But you notice, if the Democratic Party was where we should be, they wouldn't have to have indivisible. But we need it because where we are, right? So we just partner with them and make the most out of it. But the real goal is to be people's first preference for progressive social action. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm a physician, and let me ask you one question, a couple of questions I have.
Please.
First question I have is it true that one of the big reasons why the premium went high under Obamacare was because the federal subsidies by Congress were curtailed?
I would say the answer to that is no. I'd say the reason that they went up is because in the private market, the individual market, that not enough people enrolled, and so you didn't have a big enough risk pool, and so the people who need health care get in it, the people who don't, and then you end up with something kind of like a high risk pool, and it generally, as you well know, costs more money to care for people who are sicker.
Another question I have, I have been, being in practice, I've been told by certain people that, sometimes I've talked about politics, and they said to me, Democrat Party just cares about people like you. And I said, you mean what? He said, blacks, immigrants, they don't care about me. I'm talking about me and white.
I know what you mean. I get it. Well, look, the Democratic Party, the principles of the Democratic Party basically come out of the Roosevelt era, right? The idea that everybody ought to make a living. If you're too poor, too sick, too old to work, that we should take care of you. We should, as a moral obligation. I believe that. But everybody else, the government ought to do all it can to, promote jobs and good wages. Now that was something that helped everybody. The NLRB helped everybody. Now let me just tell you, we don't fight in a vacuum. We fight in a highly contested space. And if we hug bunnies, the Republicans are going to say we're engaging in animal abuse. If we walk on water, they're going to say we can't swim. They're always going to say something bad about you. They're never not going to. So of course they say, oh, you're not with the white working class no more. Come on, man. White working class in this country benefits from Social Security disability. A third of West Virginia uses Medicaid to get health care. That is nonsense. Now I will admit this to you. Who wrote a good report on this? A guy named Stan Greenberg. He didn't say the Democrats don't have a white working class problem. They got a working class problem. And I'm just gonna explain this to you. Now can you turn that camera on for a minute? I don't wanna be on tape saying this.
Obstacle for, or seen as an obstacle for your election. And so often you see people voting really against their own interests, kind of in the name of religion, or like
Yeah.
has like gut feeling like my religion is not going to do this. I guess do you think there's any way for like religious differences to be kind of used as a unifying force rather than used divisive force?
We have the opportunity to do it right now,
Great.
and we need to do it. But I'm gonna go back to what I was saying to what's your name again, sir?
Okay.
To Mr. Sahil, Dr. Sahil. We got to talk to people. Now, as they're having these anti-Sharia law rallies around the country. I'm telling you, they're going to have a reaction of interfaith communities coming together saying, this is not us. As a matter of fact, the Constitution says, Congress shall make no law establishing religion or abridge the free exercise thereof religion. And the only other place it talks about religion is where it says you cannot have a test for office, right? So you can't say that guy's Muslim, he can't be in office. And I know that because several people tried. And so what I'm saying to you is, when this reactionary anti-Muslim stuff comes up, I am telling you, people of all colors, cultures, and faiths come up and say, we're not there. Don't you remember right here in this very town, when there was the whole Ground Zero mosque nonsense?
Yep.
I spoke at a massive rally, and there were many. Most of the people were there were Christian and Jewish, right? And in Dearborn, that jerk Terry, what's his name, who, the guy who burns Qurans and stuff. Most of the people at the rally in Dearborn, where there's a large Arab Muslim population, were not his people, but the other people who protested him. And in my own district, there's a guy who is the grandson of President Taft. And he is a banker and makes a lot of dough. He's actually a Republican, but he's a very progressive guy. They still exist. And he calls me up about a year ago. He says, man, I'm sick of this mess from Trump. I hate this stuff. I said, well, okay, what do you want to do about it? He said, look, I got an idea for a full-page ad. Are you in? I said, I'm in. So me and him went and called a bunch of people. We didn't hire an ad agency. We tried to hire the ad agency, but they said, we'll do it for free. This is an ad agency that's like, most of the people there are upper middle class white Lutherans, right? And we put out a full-page ad that said it would be so un-Minnesotan to allow people to say slurs against Muslims and not say anything about it. And it went on, and it was great. Full-page ad. And then we got it got to the point where we didn't have enough space in the ad to add names. We got the head of Best Buy, the head of Medtronic, the head of General Mills, every Minnesota company, they were all on there, plus the governor. The religious folks said, can we get in on it? We said, no, we're just going to keep it to politicians and business people, because you guys, the religious left is always doing the right thing anyway, and they did their own. So there was more than one. So that's what I'm telling you. This hate is going to be reacted to if you will lead people to react to it. And as Martin Luther King used to say, he says, it's not the haters and the discriminators that you remember, but the appalling silence of your friends. So we got to be them loud friends, right? Because I tell you, it might be Muslims today, but it will be somebody else tomorrow. And remember, 1939, there was a boat of about 900 people who were Jewish coming from Europe. They were supposed to come to America. They deported in Cuba. They were on the phone with Americans saying, well, should they come in, should they not be? Our country said not. They were sent back. Many of them were killed in the Holocaust. That happened. It's called the St. Louis. You know about it. And so what I'm telling you is, and then we had Japanese internment about 5 at the same time. We have failed the moral test. Can we pass it this time? We can pass it this time. Do y'all think so?
Yeah.
We can pass the moral test this time. So it's going to take some big-hearted, courageous people. If you would step out on this religious tolerance, I'm telling you. I don't know what your religious background is, but do you mind sharing it?
I'm culturally Muslim,
Okay, so your culture. So the Muslims will say you're selling out, working with them Christians and Jews. Some will, most won't. And then other people in other faiths will say, "Why are you working with that Muslim lady?" Right? And so the real bridge builder and the peacemaker, I mean, that's not a space for the timid, right? You will be suspected and attacked from both sides. But if you got stout heart and you say you're culturally Muslim, and look, nobody gets annoyed by those little judges running around trying to impose their will on everybody. I'm talking about Muslims now, more than me. But if you will dig into the deep structure of Islam and talk about faith, love, charity, commitment, the core things that we all share, you stand on those Islamic values, you will come out ahead. But I can't promise you an easy time in a short period, but you will come out all right. Would you think about maybe just launching a website or something about tolerance and inclusion? If you do, it'll make a big difference. But we need good people to step up. There's not no time to be, you can't be a sideline citizen today. Maybe one last question to
Congressman, may I?
Yes, sir. We gotta let the PEC
Yes,
stand.
I deeply regret that I am not registered to vote in Minnesota, 5th Congress.
You're welcome to come anytime, man. Yeah, come on.
Mr. Trump would grab on that and say, look, this is what I told you about.
But let me tell you, Jerry Nadler is one of my best partners in Congress. I love that guy. He is awesome. Who's represented by Nadler? Yeah. You got a good one right there. Yeah.
All I wanted to request your brief comments on is the perception of the Democratic Party's policy towards the Muslim world.
Right.
Ironically, in many Muslim countries, the Republican Party is supposed to be much more empathetic to Muslims.
That is
particularly
ironic.
in Pakistan.
That is irony.
Yeah, that's the irony. And of course, as you know, the whole Muslim world is going through tremendous ferment and internal crisis. Much of it because of ourselves. But do you sense that within the party at this time, there is a need for much more introspection and garnering of knowledge to update the party's capacity to understand what is truly happening in the Muslim world, which is a very diverse world, and to shape foreign policy? You don't win elections on foreign policy, but it does matter because we live on a single planet. So,
my answer is a resounding yes. We do need that introspection. But let me just make a few points, and I don't want to go on long, so Tim, don't let me talk too long. Point number one: who was at or watched the conventions in Philadelphia and Cleveland? Let me just name Kaiser and Ghazala Khan, Keith Ellison, Andre Carson, who's a Muslim with the other Muslim in Congress, Sherman Jackson, who's a renowned Muslim scholar, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Debbie Al-Muntasser, and there's one that I'm missing. Who am I leaving out? Did Linda speak? No. And there's one more Muslim speaker.
Right.
How many, those are the number of Muslims who spoke and addressed the body in the Democratic National Committee in Philadelphia. How many Muslims spoke in Cleveland with the Republican? How about none? Huh?
There was one guy.
Okay, one crazy guy.
We're probably attacking Muslims.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But I mean, you get two gold star parents. You get the greatest basketball player to play the game. You get, and there were a diverse group. Debbie Al-Muntasser is Arab American, Yemeni American. You got South Asian people, the Khans. You got two African American, three African American, four African American. I mean, it was a diverse. It was the Muslim world. It was the Ummah. And so what I'm saying to you is, the Democratic Party has embraced the Muslim community, no question. I see your hand. But you're talking about abroad.
Yes.
Now, okay. Now I don't want to offend anyone. I love everyone, but I just got to be honest because you asked. So much of the Muslim world is dominated by people who I think are autocratic totalitarians.
Yeah, absolutely.
Al-Sisi, he is a human rights abuser, a serial human rights abuser. Took power in a coup. I'm no fan of Morsi now, but the man won the election, right? The Saudis Come on. They're a monarch. And women can't, the doctor could not say, oh, I'm going to rent a car at Hertz and drive around Medina. I'll tell you a quick story about Saudi Arabia. A good friend of mine was in Saudi Arabia teaching. He got killed in a car accident. His wife was in Minnesota, and the Saudis said, we'll give you a little pension because he was your breadwinner, and you have some small kids, and you also have cancer, and so you really can't work. So she moves to Medina, and so I'm on Hajj a few years ago, and I go to see her. So normally, she dressed about like you are now. When I see her, she's like got the ninja outfit on. You know, she's wearing niqab. And every Muslim in here knows that niqab is not standard issue, right? You know, it's kind of like, you're saying something when you do that, right? Okay, so she comes out like that. And I said, well, have you been able to settle Hisham's affairs and get everything? Because, you know, and she says, no, Brother Keith, but when my son Marjan turns 18, he can sign to get Hisham's affairs in order. Now, this is a 38-year-old woman. Marjan, let me tell you, nice kid, but when I met him, then, pimply face, clothes fit wrong, he looked like so many other 17-year-olds you meet. Yet he is trusted to sign a legal document and his mother is not. Man, he didn't even finish high school. His mother has like a PhD. You understand? This is Saudi Arabia. Now, look, I'm not totally down on Saudi Arabia. I know a lot of wonderful people who live there. I really, really do. But I also know that, you know, if you're Shia, they abuse you and mistreat you. It's terrible. Don't try to be gay in Saudi Arabia. If you play horoscope, they'll kill you for sorcery. Sorcery. It's not real. There's no such thing as sorcery. Right? But they'll kill you for it there. I mean, man, don't even get me started on Saudi Arabia. And so, okay. But you know what? I could go on. But I will say that the Muslim world, I think that much of the Muslim world looks at Republicans more favorably because Republicans are more favorably disposed to authoritarianism.
Yes. True.
That's very true.
One last question from my brother.
I just wanted to address the same thing you said at the very end. The Muslim world looks favorably at Republicans because they support them.
Right.
Without demanding democratic rights, human rights, or any such thing. Democrats have always been demanding rights. I remember I was in Pakistan many years ago. Pakistan went to war, Bangladesh, India, and Nixon supported Pakistan. He was a Republican. And he didn't care whether Pakistan was right or wrong. He supported Pakistan. And that history has continued. Trump showed interest recently supporting 50 Muslim countries without regard to their, as you very well pointed out, their human rights issues.
I mean, I'm telling you, to call the Saudis Muslim is stretching the term. I mean, I'm not trying to be too bad, but I mean, please. Now, there are plenty of good, what I would consider faithful, devoted Muslims in Saudi Arabia, but not the royal family, you know? And I mean, that's just being kind of harsh, but you didn't come and invite me here to tell you a bunch of nonsense, so it might not be right, but it's my opinion. Anyway, I think that that is, you want to close us out?
Yeah. First of all, we could all thank the Congressman for putting his Just a small housekeeping matter. Tim, could you stand up, please? This gentleman right here. First of all of you who contributed to support Congressman Ellison in his re-election, very much appreciate your support and your generosity. Those of you who haven't, however, there's a table over here. There are forms that can be completed, and we'd ask that you seek Tim to help the Congressman help his efforts also with the DNC. So just a small housekeeping matter. And again, one last round of applause for our gracious host. Thank you to all of you, because without you, this wouldn't be possible. So thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. Sure do. Yes, big time. We are investing right now.